All right, so it says I'm live, and if I am actually live, let me know because sometimes I don't know. And if I look okay and I sound okay, let me know in the comments in the chat so that way I know exactly where we stand because let's be honest, a lot of interesting things can happen when it comes to live streaming, especially when some people don't want to have everyone hear what I have to say. So, all right, looks like we're getting started. I'm seeing some 5x5s here in the chat, and I am excited to be here because it's Marauder Mondays Live, and this is what we do on Monday night. So, I do want to say I appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate everyone waiting for the live to start. And I do like that you guys have conversations there in the live chat beforehand, just because it's a good way to network and people are talking about other things related to prepping and being prepared for what's happening out there. So awesome for you guys to be doing that and being proactive in that way. Now, go ahead and say hi to a couple people here in the chat. Let's see. I see Andy is here. Andy's got a lot of words attached to his name. So Andy, good to see you. Austin Hoyer, hello. Mom of the Valley, welcome. Pinball Preparedness, good to see you. Let's see here. The Daily Prepper, Brian Keith Prepper. Good to see everybody. Survival Preppers here. Papa Smurf. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm really glad to see everybody. So, and it's cool that we're kind of turning this thing into a weekly event. I get to see a lot of you over and over again every week. We get to chat about the things that are happening in the world, and we get to, kind of bounce ideas around off each other to try to, figure out if there's any other perspectives out there that we need to be approaching. So, obviously, the chat tonight is titled Prepare for Inflation to Last Past 2022. Now, that is an interesting title because it's not me telling you exactly what you should expect. Like, yes, it'll be past 2022 because that's a very wide open situation. And it does look like I am frozen. So when this happens, just be aware that I'm saying words maybe somebody doesn't like, or I have terrible internet. I'll let you decide what it is. So, the inflation can last forever, obviously. And the inflation is an issue for us as people who want to be prepared because it affects our ability to afford the things that we may or may not need. It also affects our quality of life and it affects our standards of living. So, in order to maintain a level of preparedness, we have to be able to invest in that preparedness. And while we are just trying to make it by in the sense of paying rent, utilities, or a mortgage, or car payments, or whatever else it is you might have, when the common goods that are required on a daily basis become more and more expensive, it means that there's less and less left over for you to prepare for other things. So that's why this is something we need to pay attention to. And this is also why it's something that is an indicator for where we are as a society and where we are in the sense of stability as a nation. Because if inflation gets too high, then you start to see things like Venezuela. And that is obviously not something that we want to have happen. So let me know in the chat your thoughts on where we are in the sense of inflation. But we will talk about some actual references tonight. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why we know it's going to last past 2022. And really a big part of that conversation is to remind everyone that you are still in the best time to prepare right now. It's not going to get better or cheaper or more budget friendly anytime soon. And if you have the mainstream media outlets coming out and saying that this will last past 2022, there's a good chance it'll last further than that. And there's also other reasons as to why we should assume that just because inflation goes away doesn't mean prices are going to go down. And this is a huge situation for us because, I mean, for me, it's just the basic idea of, all right, I want to store more food, and yet I can't afford the amount of food that I want to store because it becomes more and more expensive every single day. That is exactly where we are. So just want to say, don't get alarmed, but be informed to be prepared to actually make moves while you're still able to and while you can afford it. If you keep waiting for the right time, if you keep waiting for prices to go down, if you keep waiting for inflation to disappear, I mean, you're literally just going to be waiting for the rest of your life possibly. And, we talk about SHTF scenarios. We know there's instantaneous ones that can occur via natural disaster or something along those lines. But we also know there's a lot of very volatile things happening in the world right now that give us a reason to feel that there could be something imminent in the sense of happening sooner than what we would like to see happen. All right, coffee has hit the lips. we're ready to go. And I do want to say, hey, Grayman Prepping, thank you for being here. Thanks for modding. Always appreciated. Yes, if you were able to see my last video, please put hashtag Blondie in the live chat because, I tried out some new hair, if you haven't noticed, and I thought it was definitely worth giving a go. But you guys let me know if that should be a permanent change or not. So I just, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page there, okay? So let's get started, all right? Because this is a lot of interesting stuff that we have to talk about tonight. And let's do the usual thing, okay? I'm going to bring up a story here. We're going to talk about it, and I'm going to give you some ideas as to why it's relevant to this conversation. Now, we also will address some of the stuff happening with, I'm seeing a lot of good Blondie stuff in the comments. That's awesome. Or the chat. I'll always say chat, comments. They're the same. We're fine here, okay? But I want to also let you guys know that I will be addressing some of this whole Facebook outage situation as well tonight. But it's not as critical as you might think. What I do want you to understand about it is that the situation that it's going to move down the road further is something we should be concerned about, and that's what we'll talk about later. So, all right. Inflation, where are we at with this? Because it is definitely an issue, right? Well, let's talk about this. So this was a story that was brought to my attention by somebody here in the community. And I thought it was actually worth a look. Okay, it's from the Epic Times. And, like I said, I tried many different sources and I tried to reference things in multiple places to try to bring pertinent information forward. But either way, whether or not there's bias or not within the articles, what you can glean off of it is some information that we can apply to the basic idea of the conversation, which is inflation will last. And this says right here, period of higher inflation will last until 2022, okay? But the biggest part of this article that we should be understanding of is the fact that people within this industry, the logistics industry that brings the supply chain, through its entire process, are telling people that this whole thing is on the edge of the cliff right now, and that there's a good chance it could go over at any point in time. If there's any other disruption at any point in time here in the near future, then there's a good chance the supply chain itself might just fully collapse. And we're talking about, truck drivers and airline workers and all this stuff related to the labor aspect of it. But we're also talking about the resources and the raw materials aspect. But I think the biggest part of it is the actual logistics, the shipping aspect of materials to producers and manufacturers. It's from products being shipped to the distributors and the retail outlets and everything else related to that. And when you start to turn it all into one big ball, it shows you that this thing is extremely fragile and full of different issues that are not easily resolved. Basically, what they're trying to say within this article is that if nothing changes soon, an entire global transport system collapse is inevitable because of the fact that we're so far behind and that the resources required in order to keep things moving are in such high demand and such low supply that it's not going to take much more for this whole thing to fall apart. And there's people who are literally saying, like, if anyone goes into another lockdown of some kind, or if there's anything that affects people's ability to import or export between countries due to lockdowns, or if there's any situation that involves people not being able to go to work due to more lockdowns, whatever it might be, that could be the end of it. And then we're going to start seeing real shortages show up immediately at every level until we get to the point where we're just waiting on trucks on a regular basis. And that is not where anyone wants to be. And clearly, like, we are right now in many ways doing that, right? We are in many ways waiting on a truck every single day, right? Especially with the on-demand supply chain system we have right now. Clearly, every store would be out of everything that they have within I think they say 72 hours, but I actually assume that would be less at this point. And we also know that demand has spiked ever since last year due to people's consumption changing due to the entire effects of what occurred. So people are buying more and more and more, and that's not slowing down, but the supply can't handle it. So this is all happening. And basically at the end of the day, they're saying this surge that's occurring will just keep going into 2022 before dropping. Now, when someone says that, right, okay, this will happen before this happens, it's because they don't really know, okay? Let's be honest. So that is just speculation, and that is, in theory, what could occur as long as everything just keeps going the way that they expect it to. A lot can happen by the end of 2022. And if you don't think so, then obviously you haven't been living in the last 18 months. But what we've seen here in the last 18 months is a complete change of entire societies and entire governments in the sense of what they are willing to do or aren't willing to do, and the executive powers that have been taken due to national emergencies that have allowed for a lot of these things to happen. So this is one article that, like I said, was brought to me by one of the community members here. If you ever want to send me information that you think is relevant to what we're doing out here, magicprepper@gmail.com is a great place to send it. And this will get at least some ideas going for me, or maybe bring something like this to the forefront for the rest of the community so we can all be very aware. But this is just one article. It is explaining the idea that a supply chain collapse is definitely a possibility. And that is something that concerns me, and it should concern you as well. Now, I do want to say I saw a chat come in from Destiny Troll. I went to Costco today, and the canned meats are almost gone. Spam, tulip. I'm going to say it was supposed to be tuna because I don't generally eat canned tulip, but maybe it's a delicacy I don't know about. And corned beef hash, most tuna and herring brands, pork, and so on are all gone. Okay, so thank you for letting us know, Destiny Troll. I appreciate the super chat, and I'll always say it every single time. Make sure you take care of yourself before you send super chats my way, but they are appreciated, and I will always use them to be better prepared. So thank you so much. Okay, so thanks for that. And that's something that we should be sharing with each other. If you're in your area and you know that your Costco is running out of certain items, or you know your local big box store is starting to become short in certain areas, it's good to share that information with everyone else. I saw on Southern Prepper One's video recently that he talked about how his Walmart was basically out of socks, and that he is starting to stock up on socks for that exact reason. And of course, socks are very important and valuable in many ways, especially we're talking SHTF. But at the end of the day, what he was just trying to do was give everyone a heads up. Look, if you need socks, this is the time, because it's starting to become an issue already. So, and don't forget, everyone, every sip of coffee I take is just a little more energy I can put into this entire conversation. So when I pause to sip coffee, you should be excited. All right. Let's see here. So the supply chain is all over the place. The Daily Prepper says 6 months after the pandemic started, our supply chain lost all ability to keep up. And that's 100% true. And for a quick second, I had to think about whether or not I could say the word pandemic. But apparently I can still say that at least. And I'm saying it right now. So, oh, well, we'll throw caution to the wind, I guess. So, because that's just how things are these days. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the other crazy stuff that's been going on when it comes to YouTube and what we are and are not able to talk about anymore. But there's some real stuff happening right now, just so you're aware. Let's see here. Vlad Grutz says, what do you see for the availability of gun parts? I would say that right now things are back in stock, and that's not going to last forever. So please go ahead and get the parts that you need. And if you're not aware, when it comes to that stuff, yes, get extra parts. Spare parts are extremely important and much cheaper than the redundancy of having an additional gun. But the spare parts can keep the stuff you have moving forward and keep them up and running when need be. So I would be buying a lot of spare parts right now if you don't already have some. And what we saw last time was that a lot of them disappeared very quickly or became extremely expensive. So you'll figure out what parts it is you need based on what you have. But what I'm saying is it's something I would look at, okay? Oh, and Tulip is off-brand Spam. Got it. Sorry, I didn't know that. I eat Spam, or I eat like the regular like store-bought stuff, but I haven't seen the Tulip brand, so that's my bad, okay? Dale Cobb, keep on keeping on. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I agree that everyone should be doing that right now, okay? So, let's see. And Prepper Nerd, chipping in to support the channel. Thank you so much. And thanks for being here. And I did get your email today. I promise you. So yes, I will definitely get back to you on that. There's always so much going on when it comes to the preparedness community, trying to interact with each other and trying to build more awareness and network. And it's awesome. But sometimes, we get a lot of emails and messages, and it can be hard to keep up once in a while. So I do appreciate your patience. Okay, so Josh Pick 18 says, canned chicken has been depleted in my area as well. Too many people in my area are watching your videos. Tuna is still stocked. Well, Josh, I told them to get out there and get it before I got it all. So good on them for doing that, because look, I'm just saying, it's good stuff. You can do a lot with it. All right, so moving on. We're going to talk about how there are some other interesting items going on, but real quick, I just will show you guys something that gives you a baseline idea as to what we are talking about when it comes to inflation and what it's affecting, okay? So, and guys, I have a great story from CNN I'm going to share tonight because I know how much you love that network and I know how informational and truthful they are about everything they put out. So I want to make sure you guys get to see it because I know no one here probably reads it, and it's just such a shame because it's all so factual. All right, so I'll get back to real life and not sarcasm, but I will be showing an article from them, and it starts with a joke, which they didn't even mean to be funny, but it is. So, okay, so here is a list from Forbes about the items that are more expensive now because of inflation. Now, I want to repeat and give you guys this little tidbit of information once again, and I need you to really digest this. But the percentages you see here, okay, so used car and trucks, 10.5% increase, fuel, oil, 2.5% increase. This is inflation talk. When we're talking actual cost, it's a different number, okay? We're talking what's actually hitting your pocketbook. It's not 2%, okay? It's way bigger than that. And this is what we need to really understand, because when you're talking about reporting inflation, it's easier to meet these numbers and to put them out there because it doesn't cause as much panic or as much alarm. But when you talk an actual cost increase, things are a little bit different, okay? And so what's interesting is that you can show this information right here, right? And you can say that, you know, fuel and oil is up by 2.5%, okay? But then in the same article or in the same news report, you can see something that says, you know, that gas is up 40%, okay? Or here, right here, gas is up 40%. So fuel and oil has a 2.5% increase, but gas is up 40%. So what you need to understand is that things are a lot more expensive than they were. And when you just digest basic inflationary numbers, you're getting a picture that's not actually the whole painting, right? You're getting just the partial portion of it that shows you an overall increase of across a ton of different industries and markets and everything else that's being calculated in a way that is applicable to economic factors, right? More so than what's actually happening in your grocery store, what's happening in your gas station, and what's actually happening in your bank account. And what we're seeing is that, yeah, okay, so this inflation, you could say 2.5% doesn't seem that crazy. I mean, it sucks, but okay, 2.5 cents on every dollar I can deal with, right? But the real number is 40% on gas prices. And now you're talking about 40 cents on every dollar, which I know for a fact that if I suddenly got hit with a 40% increase on taxes, right, and my income was suddenly deducted by 40%, I would literally be homeless. You know, I don't even know what I would do. So that's where we're heading. And this is something I wanted to bring to your attention because it's easy to digest all these different numbers, right? And say, okay, well, yeah, women's apparel is up 1.6%. But I guarantee you that that $10 shirt is not $11, you know, or $10.16 now, okay? That $10 shirt is probably $12.99 or $13.99 or whatever it might be. But I know that it's not 1.6% more expensive. It's a 1.6% inflation in women's apparel overall, but that is not giving us the full number. And now, obviously, when you look at these different categories, you're talking about, okay, women's apparel. Well, that's affected by a lot of things, of course, the supply chain issues and everything else, but it's also affected by things like the cotton supply, and that's been having a huge shortage lately. So really everything is related to something that's more than one thing, right? So this is something I wanted to kind of show you and bring to your attention, because here in the same article, you have like, you know, this little tiny increase, and then at the same time, it's like PS 40%. Right. And that's something I need all of you to be very aware of, because it's easy to kind of look at these things and feel like it's not that big of a deal. But in reality, what's actually hitting your pocketbook is a completely different story. And I keep saying the word pocketbook because apparently I am an older woman from the, 1940s that used to live in the UK or something, I guess. I don't know. Man, reincarnation, that's a crazy thing. So, oh, man. Don't look too hard into that. I did not just divulge my religious standings. I promise you on that, okay? So, yeah, Pinball Preparedness says, hell, fuel oil was up 2.5% today. Exactly. So all these things are, culminating into this giant storm that we're all going to be experiencing and that we are experiencing, okay? And Vegan Prepper says, Blondie, see, it's still permeating, and I think it's amazing. I hope you guys can appreciate the humorous aspect of that last video, and I'll probably do some more stuff like that in the future, but I still wanted it to have a message as well, to give you guys an idea on the concept of, you know, there's a lot of people out there that literally think that that's what they're going to do when things go south. So you have to be aware of that and be ready for it, okay? So let's talk about the next part about this whole little thing. Now, I want to share this story with you, and I wasn't lying about this whole unknown user says, yeah, get rid of that blonde thing. Don't worry, that character, I'm pretty sure, is now gone from the Magic Prepper universe, because that's a new film verse that we're going to start, apparently. Let's see here. Sarah Pack says blonde is my color. So obviously there's a lot of supporters here for that whole situation. So okay. Here is the amazing story from a reliable source known as CNN that I think you all are going to enjoy. Now, my favorite part about this, and hopefully it's still there. Oh, it's so still there. Thank God. All right, so here is how the screen looks right this second, which I thought was hilarious because what the hell? I don't get it. All right, so there's a story about this inflation thing, and yes, it's CNN, but like I said, let's source everywhere because, you know, we can glean information from everything. And then this little screen pops up. It's a little advertisement, I guess. And, you know, just sign up, because if you want to know what's happening there and what it means for everyone else, I mean, just sign me up, you know. I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh at this, because this article is about why inflation may not go away anytime soon. And obviously a lot of that has to do with the country involved here with the advertisement. And then Matt, I mean, just show your cards already. I mean, just let us know. I mean, it's the network already uses red as its main branding color, I guess. So it's kind of on par. And then to literally, like, what is this going to do for you? Is this a special newsletter specific to China news? Like, I don't know, guys. But this popped up literally while I had the page just open, ready for this live chat, and I just thought it was hilarious. So I wanted to share with everybody because this is CNN. Okay, this is why most people don't reference this company. This is why people don't feel the information there has any validity, and this is why I do look at their stories, because it's clearly driven in a certain way in order to propagate a narrative that we all know is not exactly what we want to see happen. So let's close this out. Or do I click no thank you? Is that no, that's too polite. We're too polite then. Okay. So why inflation may not go away anytime soon. Okay. And here they are saying it that, you know, it'll last through 2022 again, okay? And when you have places like CNN saying these things, okay, they know it's going to last longer than that, which is, again, why this live stream is titled Inflation Will Last Past 2022. If they're telling us through 2022, it's because it'll probably be much longer than that, and that is a reference point that they can use to their advantage to say, like, it won't happen tomorrow, probably by then, okay? And by then, so much will have changed and so much more hardship will probably come our way that we won't even remember the fact that they told us it would be over by then. And, you know, come 2023, no one's going to be talking about that one story that one time where they said it should be done by now. So keep that in mind, okay? But what they're trying to say is that all the stuff listed here is related to the, you know, financial markets and everything else, and that this is going to last because a quarter of the CFOs reported passing through almost all of their cost increases to customers, okay? So what they're trying to say is that a quarter of these major financial companies are passing all their costs on to the consumer at this point because that's what business does. You have a responsibility to make a profit. You have a responsibility to make your shareholders more and more rich. So you're not going to incur all these additional costs that are coming into play due to what happened throughout the last year. And I'm talking about shipping costs, labor costs, and everything else related to the supply chain. So because they're going to be pushing their costs down onto the consumer, that inflation will be then passed along as well, in the sense that their products will never be as cheap as they were before. So whatever it is that they're managing in the sense of products or resources, it will be now more expensive. And like we've talked about in the past, just keep in mind, you can't hire people at $18 an hour to do work that you used to pay 12 for. And then once things get better, you can't just say, all right, we're going to go back to 12 now because, we made it through and, you guys did a good job, but 12 is really what we pay. That will never, ever happen. So that 18 is there to stay, and the people working at that 18 will probably stay, and then that will create a more expensive product no matter what we do. So that's basically what they're trying to say. And of course, here they reference the worker shortage, right? Yeah. And then you got to have more money paid for things like, developing automation and stuff like that. But then you also have to pay the people you do have more money. So it just goes through the whole thing. But it was just one more reference point as another outlet, right? So you look at the Epic Times and then you look at CNN, and they're two completely different news organizations, especially when you talk about political bias. And both of them reported the same thing, which is this should last longer than 2022, right? Or most of 2022 or through 2022. But at the end of the day, we know that means like past it, right? So what I was trying to show you is that both ends of the spectrum are reporting on the same concept when it comes to inflation, which should concern you because usually there's not very much overlap. But here we are, and they're all agreeing at this point that this is a thing. Now, of course, CNN's also talking to people who run BlackRock, which we all know the situation with BlackRock. But if you don't, just be aware that one of their whole drives right now is to buy up as much real estate as they can and to conquer the housing market within the United States, most likely becoming a gigantic landlord holding company in many ways. So just keep that in mind because that's why a lot of house prices are through the roof. That's why the real estate market is flying. And that's why people are calling me on a regular basis to try to buy my home in cash, which I'm sure some of you have gotten similar calls. And that is a weird place to be. Okay. But that's what's happening. Okay. So hopefully the thing you really took from this whole CNN story, which is what we'll call it now, is that whole little intro we had there with signing up for the Chinese newsletter or whatever it is. Because what? Oh my gosh. Like, it's like one thing to know what's happening out there, but it's another thing to literally just say it and be like, yeah, sign on up. Go ahead and join us and be part of the board. Okay. Assimilate. God. And when you say things like Borg and assimilate, I think it reveals your true self to the public, and then you start to worry about, who you really are. So, all right. Wow. Mark Fallos, Vanguard. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And that's a huge super chat, and it will go directly to amazing preps. I guarantee you on that. Okay. So, but like I said, guys, not required at all, but thank you for it. I do appreciate it. Yeah. Harvey Black says William Shatner is going into space soon, right? And awesome. You know what? Say what you will about Shatner, but if anyone should go to space, it's probably him. So perfect. All right. Let's see here. Let's get back in the chat a little bit before we move on to the next section that I want to share with you guys. And there's Die Will Tomorrow. No, I did not sign up, actually. I did not. Commander Crip, they did a 10% pay cut to all employees on my old job and the oil prices plummeted. People were pissed. Exactly. So, back then it was a difficult situation. And I think a lot of us worked in jobs where people were reduced in their income in order to maintain a job. And that was what happened during the lockdowns and everything else, where people were very restricted on what they could or couldn't do regarding employment. So yeah, you can't just do that, and I've had companies in the past try to do that for me just for their own purposes, right? For their own cost savings and stuff like that. And in those situations, you had a lot of people who were like, well, I'm going to leave. And it actually changed the company's mind because they're like, well, we can't operate without all these people, so we have to just stop what we were trying to do. But last year, companies had no choice but to do those things. So it's a little bit different. Let's see here. And here's what I'm going to say. Brian Keith Prepper, I watch a lot of stuff, and I've probably seen a lot of the things that everyone's going to reference. But there's a lot of interesting things happening here in the world of YouTube right now. And if we even discuss similar things related to that at this point in time, there's a good chance that I won't exist tomorrow. So that's the best I can say about it right now, and the sense of self-perseverance and being able to still continually have these chats every week and to be able to put out content regularly that hopefully helps people get more prepared and motivates people to kind of move forward in their preparedness. I have to avoid those things for now. And it's an unfortunate circumstance of being in the world we're in today. And how just devastating is it that we actually find ourselves in this position out here in the United States? It's out of control. So Paul Taylor, I literally thought about doing that, and then I didn't. But I appreciate it. So let's see here. Let's see. I want to get here a little bit further. But I do want to say, David Burdett. Yes, there is an increase in volcanic activity and earthquakes. Yes, of course, that is happening. And obviously, some of that's related to the La Palma situation. What I will say about that is that nobody should be panicked about that scenario. It's been researched through and throughout, but that anything can still happen. But just as that could create some kind of mega tsunami scenario, so could a giant earthquake anywhere else as well. Yes, there's different circumstances involving landslides and stuff like that regarding that whole situation. But like what we saw in Japan, I think in 2011, that didn't have the same accelerator as what we can see over happening in La Palma, but it did have a huge amount of devastation and wasn't related to something along those lines. So when it comes to natural disasters, a lot of times the best thing we can do is continually prepare in the way that we already do, and then hope that it doesn't occur. But if it does, know that we have a plan and know that we can pivot and adapt to what's happening in that moment. Okay, so it's kind of how I think about it. So and Daniel Andrews, thanks for letting us know. John Mendoza, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Okay. Let's see here, and there's a lot of things going on in the world, everybody. There really is. So I would like to say, there's a lot to keep an eye on. But right now, the reason we're talking about inflation is because it's what turns societies like ours into a third world country. It's what takes the icing off the cake. Okay. It's what will then transition us towards being what the rest of the world would probably prefer. And that is that we'd be in a state of decline where the people would be brought to their knees and that they would be watching from afar with us and our bread lines waiting to get our rations while the rest of the world gets to maintain their authoritarianism or whatever else it is that they do and laugh at us and say, well, this is why your whole concept doesn't work. Now, whether or not it's manipulated to become that way, which obviously I think there's a lot of indications that it is, I think that's what a lot of people would like to see. And I think that's why this is so important for us to be aware of, because the inflation is in its own way is something that pushes us over that edge and turns us into that third world country that we want to avoid becoming. And I think that that's why I'm trying to keep putting this out there as being a real issue. Okay. And Alaska Prepper is, a good friend of mine, and he's someone who constantly beats the drum of this inflation. It's not going away. Get your food, do what you got to do, but this is still going to be around. And this is why he also likes precious metals and stuff like that. So I just want to, say that it's around the entire preparedness community. We often talk about inflation, and it seems like something you would watch an economist for, right? Or somebody who's involved with the financial system. But as preppers, it's our job to keep an eye out on everything that's related to whether or not we're going to be able to survive. And surviving sometimes means being able to afford food, being able to afford our standard of living, being able to afford moving forward in our preparedness. And that's not a position that we're heading in. We're in fact going away from it. So let's talk about another part of this conversation, and that will be about the permanent truth about temporary inflation, which you should all already know. Okay. This is an opinion piece from the Wall Street Journal, but it is something that I feel is very relevant and something that you should keep in mind, because this is exactly why inflation is such an issue. Okay. And this article basically makes fun of the whole transitory inflation argument, right? This is transitory. It's temporary. It's going to go away eventually. We just have to get to that point again. And my big problem with that is that we find ourselves expecting things to improve, so we don't act on what's happening right now, or we expect things to get better, so we wait, right? And we stay patient, and we're just hoping that this transitory inflation will disappear. But what this article brings to your attention, and what's what I felt it was worth sharing for is because, yes, inflation is going to go up and it's going to go down. It's going to have a different wave every year. We're going to see different trends when it comes to inflation. But what it does is it creates a new baseline, okay? And that's what they're trying to say here. There's a baseline effect related to last year's shutdowns, right? And that the inflation, whether or not it goes away, doesn't change the baseline of cost anymore, okay? Inflation disappears tomorrow. It doesn't mean that you're going to get everything for the same prices we got in 2019 anymore. It means that we will maybe not see the prices increasing at the same rate, but we will pay more for them than we used to. And we will always pay more for them. And it will not ever go back to what it was. And this is the whole thing, a lower inflation rate in the future will only moderate future increases from that new higher base. The one thing that almost certainly will not happen is that prices will fall substantially to undo some of this alleged transitory inflation. Okay? And the Federal Reserve will fight tooth and nail to prevent that. So that is what they're discussing here. It's trying to give you the sign that this is not something that just disappears. Okay, inflation gone. Tomorrow it's back to zero. Perfect, right? Thank God inflation's over. Doesn't matter. We are still going to be paying more for everything from here on out. And the inflation disappearing won't fix the supply chain. The inflation disappearing won't fix the labor shortage. The inflation disappearing won't really fix anything. All it will do is maintain a baseline of where we are now further on into the future until inflation happens again, which it always will and always does. So this is a good article. It's an opinion piece, like I said, but it's a good reminder as to why people shouldn't get so bought into the whole transitory inflation concept or conversation, because it makes things sound better than they are, and it gives people false hope about what things will eventually be once again. And that's exactly what we should avoid. As preppers, what do? Right? We hope for the best, but we prepare for the worst. Okay. Well, that's why things like this are tricky, because this is a hope for the best situation, right? Hope for the best, transitory inflation. But it's one of those scenarios where you hoping for the best is actually a falsehood at this point when we're talking about what this article is addressing. Hoping for the best is that things stop moving up. It's not hoping for things to get cheaper. It's not hoping for things to go back. It's just hoping for things to stop increasing. And that's what they were trying to bring to your attention in this article. And it's a really, decent article. It's very in-depth, gives you some different reference points, okay? But I think it's worth checking out, and it's called The Permanent Truth About Temporary Inflation, okay? And it's from the Wall Street Journal. So like I said, lots of different news sources, lots of different opinions, but also a lot of good information, because people need to reference different perspectives and points of view from time to time, okay? And that's what that article did for me, was just to remind myself that, like, even if inflation disappears, it doesn't get us out of the swamp. It doesn't get us out of the issues that we're already dealing with right now, okay? So, let's see here. I see some people in here talking about Facebook and stuff, so that's fine. We are going to address that too, but just in a very short way, and it's not going to be, crazy, or it's not going to be, an existential crisis because of this whole situation. But what I will tell you about is that my concerns for what this whole scenario might create. And this is something that I don't think a lot of people will address, because I think a lot of us are going to be wrapped up in the idea of hacks and data breach and in, cover-ups and everything else related to why this may or may not have occurred. But the solution, or the fix to the situation, is really what concerned me. So, and that's actually one of the articles that I found that was related to that more so than the other things, and why I think that we can have a little chat about that. But first, I want to get back into the actual chat and talk to you guys a little bit. Gerald B says, our local Walmart hasn't had a meat and produce delivery for the past 2 days. Everything they did have is out on the shelves this morning. They don't get a delivery tonight or in the morning. So, and that's what I'm hearing quite a bit. Empty shelves are a new normal. And here's something I want you guys to be aware that really affected me recently, okay? And this was something that I was unprepared for, which I'm generally pretty prepared, but I was unprepared for this situation. And that was walking into the grocery store, right? And I'm walking down the aisle, and I'm like, man, I got to get some stuff for my kids, okay? And then I turn the corner, and the entire Lunchables display is empty. No Lunchables at all in the whole grocery store. and there was a sign on the door that said, "We're sorry, there ain't no Lunchables today." And you know what? Lunchables, say what you will about them. They could be terrible for you. They're unhealthy, blah, 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 process this, fake food that. I get it. But what I'm trying to say is that Lunchables are a dang staple of this country's diet, and they were gone. And that is a big issue, because if Lunchables are gone, things are way worse than what we're being told. And I feel like a lot of people need to be understanding of this, okay? Because look, man, that's a real situation. This is an American brand. Lunchables? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And they were gone. That's it, okay? So just want you guys to understand that if Lunchables can't get put on the shelf, so much more can't either. And that is a huge issue. And we are definitely in that situation right now, okay? And JS, yes, this is where I turn into the Lunchable Marauder. I'll be that guy busting into doors, walking in, people will be, gasping, and the first thing I'm going to say is, "You got any Lunchables?" And then when they say no, I'll just leave peacefully, and they'll wonder whatever happened to their entire life. So, all right. And listen, say what you will about Lunchables, but when you got kids and they ask specifically for things and you can't get them for them, that sucks. And we're talking about, that's just a basic thing, right? And T-Rex said, see, T-Rex already said that's child endangerment. See, I told you, people hate that. But what I'm trying to say is that this is just a quick example as to what it might be like when people can't get what their kids not only want, but actually need. And that's starting to become an issue. And I don't know if you guys remember, because we forget things quick, but a year and a half ago, it was really hard to get diapers. It was really hard. And yes, there's a lot of alternatives to diapers. But if you are someone who needs diapers and suddenly can't get them, that becomes a very desperate situation. And people were very extreme about their reaction to trying to fight over the last pack. So that was last year. Imagine what could happen if things just get worse from there. Okay. So, sorry, I thought that was just going to be a good time, guys. All right. So I didn't mean to, freak everyone out about my unhealthy dietary situations here. So Rebecca Snavely. Yes, you did make a live show. Thank you for being here. Everybody say hi to Rebecca so she feels good about joining us tonight, because this is a great time and we always have good fun here, okay? So what I want to go ahead and, Man of Mastery for sure. Pepperoni pizza Lunchables were fire back in the day. And I can't even explain to you that, I was so mad when my mom would get the bologna ones. I'm like, what are you doing? There's only one, okay? There's only one type. All right. All right. So Destiny Troll, Lunchable Black Market's going to be wild. Yeah. We're going to get rip-off ones, right? They're going to be like Lunch Possible. And they're going to have, maybe some stale bread and some old bacon. And then, there won't be cheese, but it'll be simulated cheese. And then everyone's going to be upset. Now I do want to mention the Facebook situation. So here's what we do. We'll do this really quick, because I don't think it really requires a lot of our time, and everyone's got all their speculations about it, all this stuff. I totally get it. Trust me. I agree with a lot of the reasons for why we should be worried about it. Okay. Here's what I am worried about. Okay. So all this is happening. Facebook this, Facebook that, all their other, subsidiaries, Instagram, WhatsApp, and whatnot. And stuff happens, right? This is the internet. But we also know stuff happens on purpose sometimes. We also know when things happen in the sense of whistleblowers, people try to clean up their dirty laundry. We all know that these are all possibilities. Here's what I don't like, okay? We're urging the U.S. Senate to regulate the company. Now, hold on. Okay, I had to drink some more coffee before this, all right? Understand that regulation is something that people demand, okay? People want these giant tech companies regulated because of the immense power that they wield, the frivolous acts that they do when it comes to people's data, and the fact that they are running rampant with censorship and other things that are literally, in many ways, anti-American, right? But here's what I want to have you consider and keep in mind, okay? When the government gets involved with things, it never goes well. And here's what they're trying to do. They want the U.S. Senate to regulate the company. Look, I don't trust Facebook. I don't trust a lot of these big tech entities to do the right thing. I don't trust the censorship and the stuff like that. But what I definitely don't trust is the government regulating anything. And they're not good at it. And in fact, they're doing a really bad job in general. Okay. They can't even execute basic military procedures at this point. But we want them to regulate one of the largest social media networks in the world. Okay. I don't see it going well. And in fact, I see it being even more invasive into what they'll have access to when it comes to your individual privacy, which is already gone, but at the same time, like just more access than what they already have, and allowing them to enter a realm that they don't belong in, and then probably screwing it up even more. So this is something that I don't necessarily want to have happen. Now, I do like things like what they did in Florida, right? When the governor there signed the law that allows for a content creator like myself to sue a company over censorship and stuff like that if it affects their income, their livelihood, and if it's based on false premises and all the other stuff related to that. I don't necessarily see that being an issue, because to me, that just sounds like what anyone could do with any employer if they were mistreated during their tenure. It just sounds like they're trying to apply that same fairness level to everyone who utilizes the content creator economy, let's say. But that's not necessarily regulation. That's just a checks and balance situation for the people who are involved. When you take the U.S. Senate and literally say, you have to do this job now, okay? I don't like it. I don't want that, okay? Everyone is one side or the other, okay? And so in this cycle, we have one group in the majority who would be willing to do whatever that might be if they had the possibility of regulating the things like Facebook, right? And then the next cycle, you have a different group in power possibly who might do something completely opposite. And either way, because look, I don't trust the dichotomy of our government. I don't buy into the two-party thing and expect everyone to always have my best interests at heart, because I guarantee you that's not the case no matter what letter they put in front of their name. But what I will say is that they suck at literally everything. There's no reason to give them this gigantic task that they literally could not manage and expect them to do a better job, right? Yeah, this company obviously has biases. This company definitely treads on people's rights to free speech, okay? But the United States government, do they have a clean track record of not doing that? Are they the ones we really want in charge of companies like Facebook to tell us what we can or can't post, or to investigate us even more easily based on what we do in social media or whatever it might be? I don't like it and I don't want it. And that's what this stuff is going to keep pushing forward. More and more government invasion of the private sector, which at the end of the day is what this is. Okay. Yes, public forum, I get it. Should they allow freedom of speech? I think so. Is that something I need the government to come in and take care of? I just don't know. I don't know. Not into it. I'm pretty much trying to remove as much of that from the equation as possible on a regular basis. So you guys tell me in the chat if you think that this is a good idea or not. And what I'll do is I'll even put a little poll here and say, should the government regulate social media? Okay. And I'll let you guys decide, because honestly, it's good for us all to have this conversation. And it is different. Somebody in my position, maybe I would benefit from this situation, right? I might be somebody who would benefit from it. Like, oh, well, now I'm protected because they can't just come in and shut me down just because they don't like what I said. Or maybe I'm protected because, the government said that, this or that has to happen. But at the same time, imagine what the government can do when it comes to things like the super chats you guys give me here in the live chat, right? What if they decide that they're going to take the taxes out of that the second that it's posted, right? What if that's part of this regulation? Oh, there's a lot of money transactions that happen within these communities that we need to keep an eye on and regulate, right? Anything over $600 out of your bank account, we're already going to start trying to look at that. So we might as well check out these microtransactions as well. And that is another reason why I don't want them around, and why you shouldn't want them around either. So this is just my opinion. And it's probably the biggest thing we need to watch out for with this whole Facebook thing, more so than the actual reason behind why it happened. Our speculation is usually decently accurate, I would assume. In this community, we're skeptics. We look at things with a side eye and we say, yeah, I don't buy it, right? Well, I don't buy it. I don't buy what it is they're trying to say. The reasoning behind some of this was, and I think we all know what's going on. But either way, I don't think that every single time something happens, we should say, yeah, let's get the government involved. Because when has that gone well? I I don't know. You tell me. Look at the AFT. Tell me if you think that's something that's going well, because I don't think so. Okay, and you know, just so you guys are aware, I mean, I had a recent video about top 5 preps you should be getting right now, and hopefully you saw it. But if you didn't, check it out, because I do mean like a lot of those preps are things you should be looking at like now, because it's not going to get any better. And with wait times and stuff like that, especially when we're talking about items related to the AFT, why you're going to have to wait no matter what. Don't make that wait that much longer, especially with the way things have been going. Okay. So boycott banks and plastic cards. Government already regulates, censors the entire internet. What rock have I been living under? Dumbest thing I ever heard Magic Pepper say, right? So sure, okay, that is one way to approach it. But when it comes to Senate regulation of a private entity that already can't keep itself on track, I don't trust the government to do a better job of regulating it in any sense. Okay, so yeah, you want to say that they regulate and censors everything. Okay, sure, but I have feelings that that's not always necessarily true based on things that have happened in the past, especially when it comes to message boards where people were able to operate in a certain fashion. Are they inserted and part of those conversations, and do they instigate? 100%. But do they completely control every facet of the internet? No. So that's just my opinion. But understand that this conversation is a little bit different when it comes to what we're talking about, and that means public recognition of Senate regulation of a giant social media entity means a lot different than what they do in the background. Understand that, okay? So let's see here. I see you guys in the chat. I know what you're up to. Anyway, Exile Reviews, thank you so much for that, okay? And look, you know, I say dumb stuff sometimes, so I'm okay with that. Rob Sinelli, is Parler still a thing? Yeah, it is, but they got canned in multiple ways, and everything about what they did is a lot less than what it was a year ago. And unfortunately, when it comes to social media and these networks, okay, there's so many video sharing outlets right now. There's a lot. None of them are as accessible as YouTube, right? So I work the way I have to in order to maintain what I do here, because it's still the best place to do this. And unfortunately, nowhere else has the ability to get the message out as far. And that's the best thing I can say about it. So it's difficult, but it is what it is at this point. And a lot of things would have to happen for another platform to even come close to what you can do here. So that's unfortunate, but true. Yes. Okay. So, and God, I don't know. I just have to say things sometimes. Okay. And Brandon Levine, why did I display the government's flag on my set? It's not the government's flag, Brandon. It's the flag of the United States of America. And at one point in time, it was a country that was ran by the people. It no longer is. And of course, a lot of people would say that it hasn't been for 200 some years or whatever you want to call it. But what I'm trying to say is that it's a flag that symbolizes what it is that I believe in, more so than just supporting a government, if that makes sense to you. Okay. So just trying to throw it out there. All right. Now, this is where things get interesting. Okay. If we're getting towards, an hour mark here, and I've definitely had my share of coffee. So this is the moment of truth for the shameless coffee plug time. I drink Invader coffee. It is amazing. I literally mean that. If you want to help support the channel and get coffee, there it is in the chat. But I like those guys. They're all veterans. It's owned and operated by veterans. It's an American company. And the coffee is legit. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's just super good. So I'm just throwing it out there, okay? Now, with inflation and everything else that's going on, if you are away from your... what's the best way to say this? If you're not near your goals when it comes to preparedness, if you're not where you want to be, especially when it comes to food, okay, that is something that you got to prioritize and start getting on top of. But food will never not be something important. So one of the things I was trying to allude to recently was the things that are more niche are definitely more difficult to get and will become increasingly more difficult to get. And we're talking about things like, let's say something that's made out of titanium. Okay, titanium is not an easy to come by resource. Keep that in mind. Okay, moving on from there. I mean, if you're talking about things that require semiconductors, like I don't know, anything that's stabilized using an LED. Those are things that we have to keep in mind. Those are the things that are going to become more and more difficult to get. So make sure that you're always prioritizing food and always prioritizing all of the other stuff you need, you know, water and, you know, power and everything else you need. But get the things that are niche before you can't. If you have to have something specific to what you do or to what you need or to how you practice, this is the time, because it's not going to become more available. It's just not. Okay. It's not going to do anything else when it comes to abundance. It's just going to get more and more difficult. Okay. And that's just what I want you guys to understand. So yeah, I am, you know, making some moves. And when you make moves, sometimes you got to figure out ways to generate the money in order to make those moves. Sometimes you got to sell some stuff. Sometimes you got to take some extra work, you know, take an extra job. Sometimes you got to go out of your comfort zone and find yourself a way to trade or whatever else it might be. But use what you have and take a good inventory of what you have right now, especially in the sense of preps. And then decide, do I need all of this? Am I actually doing myself a favor by keeping all of the things I have, or do I have an abundance of one category and a lack thereof in another? And then consolidate what you can in order to benefit another section or category of your preparedness, okay? And when I say that, what I mean is like the obvious things, okay? Look, I'm a gun guy, right? I have tons of them. I buy too many, whatever you want to call it, okay? And I'm always trying to like check out the next thing, okay? But when I'm trying to be realistic with myself and practical, I look at my safe and I say, okay, I can only carry one. I need to train more often with one or two certain platforms, and that's it. And then I need to look at what else is sitting there that has a lot of money wrapped up in it. That could be more food. That could be more backup power. That could be, you know, more water storage or whatever else. You know, for me, some of that's going to probably be some raw materials so that I can start building out some like that. But that is what I'm trying to say, is it's not always about waiting to get paid either. Sometimes it's about seeing what you already have and transforming it into what you need. Am I frozen? If I'm frozen, it's not my fault, I promise. But I did say certain words, didn't I? That's what we do, huh? Okay. Oh, it's so good. Daily Prepper said seeds, seeds, seeds. And yes, get your seeds. Do not forget, okay? I was going to say do not remember, but do not forget. Remember a year and a half ago, I believe it was Michigan who was, you know, banning the sale of seeds, right? Like seeds were put on hold from major big box stores. That is not something that we should forget. Why seeds, right? We have ideas, of course, but at the end of the day, what we should be aware of is the fact that that's something they targeted, which means that it's written in a freaking page somewhere that somebody said, this is something we have to watch out for. And now in the future, it's always going to be in that mix. It's always going to be in the conversation of, well, what should we regulate? What should we target? Okay. Let's see. Brenda Bodwin has grass-fed Black Angus beef. See, that's solid. You can't go wrong. And that's just going to get more and more expensive. So yeah, barter. Do what you guys got to do, okay? And I think it's awesome that we can have people in the chat here literally making trades and stuff right here, right now. Why not, okay? As long as it's family approved. And when I say that, I mean, you know, platform approved, I guess. But you guys know what I'm talking about. And just to mention the poll, 213 votes, 86% said no, and 14% said yes. So what I'll say about that is that the 14% who said yes, I assume are coming from a place of what I would say is, you know, thought out logic in a sense of that these companies, these tech companies have too much power and they're utilizing it in a way that's anti-American, and that they want to squash anyone with, you know, different opinion and everything else related to that. So I understand why people would want this regulation. I do. I totally get it. My concern with it is always going to be the fact that the government can't even regulate, you know, how to grow grass. So why would I expect them to be able to do a good job of something like this, which is way more massive and way more technical than what they're even capable of? Let's be honest. So just wanted to mention that. Okay. And let's see. And Donna says, don't let them divide, find the good when possible. And Magic for President, he never sleeps. Well, okay, so first off, Donna, you weren't supposed to tell my secrets about the fact that I don't sleep. But you know what? Now that it's out there, that's best prep ever. If you can just be done with sleep, you're good to go. I mean, let's be honest. Sleep is not going to help you in the apocalypse, okay? And don't take that as real advice. Please sleep. I'm pretty sure you will die if you don't sleep. And then, and as for president, like, oh my, yeah. No, I don't think so. But what I will say is, maybe if things change and things are easier to do in the sense of having less to worry about, I'll let you all figure out what that might mean. So, but there are a lot of things going on right here in the chat. I'm really appreciative of all you guys working together and trying to build a community and trying to help each other. So that's amazing. I will say that every single day that goes by, we're heading more and more towards the inevitable here. And when I say the inevitable, I'm not talking about like, everything's going to collapse into a giant hole in the ground and we're going to find out that crab people have taken over the surface. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm trying to say is that economically, we're not going to have a recovery anytime soon. And we're going to actually still hit the bottom before we start heading back up. And the bottom hasn't happened yet. The bottom is going to be a very difficult place for all of us to be. And I feel that that's coming sooner than later. Now, one thing I will say is that there's also a lot of saber rattling going on around the world. And especially when you want to talk about what's happening in Taiwan and all the incursions of aircraft from China and everything else related to that, it just kind of keeps pushing that envelope, that boundary as to what will or will not be tolerated. And when the financial system starts to really take its toll, countries like that are going to see what they can do or get away with based on the debt that is up and the fact that, the leadership right now seems weak, appears weak, and is actually being mocked for being weak in those countries as we speak. So what we're looking at is the possibility of this financial situation to culminate into something much worse. And obviously throughout history, when things have gotten very dire in the sense of finances, one of the ways to dig ourselves out of it was through conflict. So I wanted to mention this to kind of give everybody an idea as to what is happening, okay? There's a lot happening in the world. We have to be aware of it, okay? I need everyone here to be understanding so we can try our best to kind of get through it together. And that's hopefully one of my goals here, is to maintain this ability to communicate, maintain what we do here with talking to everybody and kind of working with everyone. And Rebecca Snavely says she works in mental health case management and that things are really impacting the people I serve. Resources are slim too. And that's huge. And it's because this overwhelming blanket of doubt has encompassed most of the country at this point. And most people feel that this inevitable crash is still on its way. And some people are going to have it subconsciously where they don't realize why they are in such a funk. They don't realize why they don't feel like things are going well and why their life is in a certain position that they never expected it to be. So that subconscious feeling is going to probably continually grow. But people are aware of things being bad, but they just might not know it outwardly. But at least subconsciously, they're feeling it. So just want everyone to know that we're heading in that direction. And you have to be prepared for it, not just mentally, because that's very important, but you also have to be prepared for it in the sense of skills, health, equipment, food, everything else that's related to preparedness. And the health thing's big. Physical fitness is huge. It sucks, but do what you can with that, okay? And I will say I recently took a carbine course. I recently got to go out and do some drills and stuff with some guys who are a lot more skilled than I am. And what I'll say about that is that not only did that show me my level of skill and proficiency when it came to self-defense, but it also showed me where I was lacking in physical fitness. Because, look, I've been running every other day for a long time now. I've been doing a lot of exercise for a long time now, and I'm still not in the shape that I need to be in. And, I'm a big dude. It's hard for me to really get out there and make it happen. But, and when I say that, what I mean is like, it just takes more for me to run than it does for someone much smaller than me. But either way, I'm still not where I want to be. And all it takes is going out and working with people who are a little bit more fit or a little bit more agile or a little bit more proficient when it comes to self-defense to realize how far behind you are. And that's something I definitely suggest all of you do now too, is go out and get training, not just so you learn and not just so you start figuring things up, okay, but so that you understand where your shortfalls are. And so you understand how things fall apart so quickly when the pressure is put on. And without somebody else there putting you on a timer and yelling at you and trying to get you moving and giving you all the tips and the pointers and trying to remember everything while you're running around and being exhausted, it's hard to figure out, okay? Spirit matrix, all I meant by that is that, I'm 220 pounds. So running around at 220 pounds is just hard sometimes, okay? Oh, man, I'm flat-footed, all right? But what I'm trying to say is that even myself, as hardworking as I am when it comes to those departments right now, I'm not even close to where I want to be. So make sure you all do what you can to get into that position and feel as good as you can before any of this falls apart. So that way you all are ready for what's going to happen. Okay. So, and when I say what's going to happen, do I know exactly what's going to happen? No. But do I know that things aren't going well? Yes. Do I think that we're eventually going to see them really not be well? Yes. So, wanted to say that. You know what? Monoshi Prepping, I agree. The mods have done a great job. Thank you all so much. I have a great team here that helps me out every Monday, and they don't get as much appreciation as they deserve. So make sure you go check them out. Grayman Prepping is an awesome channel who also does live streams and has a lot of good guests on. So I definitely suggest checking him out. Does a great job modding here. And then I also am hoping to have him here on the live stream soon so we can also talk about more preparedness related stuff together. So just wanted to throw that out there. If you guys have any other stuff for me, let me know. You know where to find me, magicprepper.com. Vegan Prepper asked if it's because of preppers that the shelves are empty. No, it's actually because the average person is aware of what's happening at this point, because even the mainstream media can't hide the fact that things are falling apart anymore. And people are just going out and buying more than they ever used to. So demand is through the roof. The amount of preppers in the world couldn't push demand to that point, okay? Not by ourselves. It's a lot of the average person doing a lot of this too, okay? I think it's something like, 5% of people have some sort of preparedness put away. 5% of people might have like 2 weeks of food. That's not the people who are actually emptying out the stores, okay? And Boycott Banks and Plastic Cards says, he likes how, or she, I'm not sure, loves how I emphasize health, okay? And it's true. It's true. It's very important. It's not even just about being fit. It's not about just being able to run or, do all the cool guy tactical stuff, right? It's about just staying alive for longer. It's about heart health. It's about your body being able to fight off sickness. There's a lot of reasons why it's important, okay? And Menace is mad at me, apparently. I'm not sure why. If anyone knows what happens there, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going on there. But you know what I'm saying. So either way, you guys are awesome. Thank you all for being here. I think we're going to call it a night. We are at 1 hour and 8 minutes. And I look forward to next week. I hope to see you all there. And hopefully you all had a good conversation tonight. I know I did. And I'll do my little thing, which is that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.